Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is the Produce Moms Podcast. It's Lori Taylor. I love hosting this show, and I love that you all are here. Thank you very much for your support of the Produce Moms Podcast. We legitimately could not do this without your support, so thank you very much. We have the most amazing guests today on the show. We are helping one of our beloved brand partners celebrate a true milestone. So, today on the show, we are welcoming Skip Hulett. Skip is an accomplished attorney with extensive and broad legal experience. He serves as the Vice President and General Counsel of NatureSweet. That's right, the people who bring us all those cherub tomatoes that we love, and many other delicious greenhouse products. So I first met Skip in DC. He and I were both on the Hill supporting, agriculture policy and activism. And Skip is just an absolute leader, not just at NatureSweet, but industry-wide, very well known and respected. As you all know, NatureSweet is one of our brand partners here at the Produce Moms, and they are fully committed to improving the lives of agricultural workers in North America and truly setting a standard for the entire global supply chain. And in addition to being the #1 tomato brand and leading greenhouse produce company, NatureSweet recently became the largest controlled environment agriculture company in the world to earn B-Corp certification. Yay! We are so excited about that. As you all know, we're a certified B-Corp here at the Produce Mom, so this is going to be an incredible episode because today we are honored to celebrate NatureSweet's B-Corp certification. We're going to look back on that journey to certification with Skip. So with that, Skip, welcome to the show. We're so glad you're here.
I'm so happy that you invited me to try to share our story.
Oh my gosh. Well, what an amazing story it is to share. NatureSweet has such a strong purpose and vision. We're going to get into that. And like I said in my opening remarks, I think people are already in love with the brand because of the amazing tasting tomatoes and other greenhouse products that you make accessible for all of our home kitchens. But tell us a little bit more about yourself. Tell us a little bit more about NatureSweet.
Okay, so I'll start with myself. I grew up in a very blue-collar family, parents who worked very hard. And I think that's probably why I care so deeply about how workers are treated.
Yeah.
My wife and I, Susan, celebrated our 41st anniversary actually this week. We have thank you. We have 3 adult children, all married. We have 3 beautiful granddaughters and 1 on the way, literally any time now. So we're really excited about that. As far as a career goes, and you kind of touched on it, I've had a very broad legal career. I've kind of done it all. As a baby lawyer, I was a prosecutor. I was a founding partner of a law firm, litigator, a judge for a season, a mediator, and really for the last 19 years, I've been general counsel, which is kind of the chief legal officer of a company. And for the last just over 5 years, I've been serving that role here at NatureSweet. And so as you touched on NatureSweet, we are, again, and we're very proud of it, the largest controlled environment and agricultural company in the world to be B-Corp certified. I know we can't say that enough, but and we do have the #1 selling snacking tomato brand, and you've touched on that. Our core business really is the premium snacking tomato, sometimes referred to as specialty tomatoes. But as you alluded to, Lori, we also now produce and market, other tomatoes on the vine, also peppers and cucumbers. And we really do have a very unique business model in the industry. Yeah. And if I had to be honest, that model was very difficult, but it's driven by our purpose to transform the lives of agricultural workers in North America. And when it comes to premium snacking tomatoes, we are the largest vertically integrated produce company in North America. And so what that really means is that we plant, we grow, we harvest, we package, and then we distribute our greenhouse grown produce to the consumer directly, by way of the retailers.
Mm-hmm.
So again, why do we do that? It's not the easiest, but it really goes back to our purpose, because number one, you transform lives by providing year-round jobs for the farm workers, so they don't have to migrate based on the seasons. They can remain with their family and their communities. You transform lives by paying well above the industry, creating less than 1% monthly turnover, which is really unheard of in the agriculture industry.
That's unheard of in agriculture. I actually think it's probably unheard of in all sectors of employment at this point. I mean, so restate that, because when I read that, and your team sent over some pre-read materials just to help me get prepared for this topic, because as you know, we talk a lot about the downstream, like, here's how you can use glories in your next Italian dinner, as opposed to always talking about these policies and the governance. And so this was new information to me, despite the long-standing relationship that the Produce Moms and NatureSweet has. And it truly was the one thing from the pre-read that just like bounced off the page. It took the wind out of my sails in a very good way. So repeat that, because it is unbelievable, that statistic.
Yeah, it's less than 1% a month turnover.
That's unbelievable.
Which means
Skip.
Our agriculture workers stay with us.
Yeah.
And truly, in order to be able to transform lives, you have to have a business model that allows you to do all the things necessary, right? You can charge a premium price when you have a premium product. You have a premium product because you have workers who are not only happy and proud, but who care, who stay with you, who make sure that your food that ends up on your table is safe and the quality is at the top.
Right.
And it always goes back to the people. And it's because of our people that we have such a high quality product. Yeah. But it all goes back to transforming lives. Well, the only way you can do that is you have to be able to charge a premium price to be able to pay them well, and to provide year-round jobs. And you have to grow in greenhouse, use greenhouse technology to provide year-round jobs.
Yeah, you're the number one selling tomato brand, though. So while it is a premium price for the category, it's obviously an accessible or sustainable SRP, or else you wouldn't be the number one selling tomato brand. Yeah. And
that goes into our purpose.
Right.
We have over 6,000 employees we call associates. But our purpose is to transform the lives of agricultural workers in all of North America. So it's not enough that we transform 6,000 lives and families, but that is where you start. You start at home. In order to transform the lives of agricultural workers in all of North America, we need to invite the industry to join us in this journey.
Right.
And the only way they're going to join us is if you can show them that a sustainable way of doing this. That you do have to be profitable, because that's how you sustain this.
100%.
So we want to impact the agricultural world as a force for good. And, you may ask, well, why is this so important to you and to NatureSweet? And you look back, I think largely it's because, we know that farm workers have historically been among the most marginalized by the global trade system. Right. So it really is important for us to transform the industry.
Well, I think you're on your way. And I think this is a great segue into talking more deeply about the B-Corp certification process, because you used a term that I think we all certified B-Corps use, force for good. These are businesses, like if we were to define what's the one tagline that kind of connects all of the different B-Corps around the globe, I think force for good is that tagline. But when did the B-Corp certification process begin at NatureSweet? I know for our journey at the Produce Moms, it was quite arduous, 18 months of work, and we are a very small business in comparison to NatureSweet. So when did it begin? How did the company decide that B Corp was a worthwhile venture? Take us back to those very early days of discovery and starting the B Corp journey.
All right. And this may sound a little bit crazy, but I have to say our journey really began 3 decades ago. when the decision was made to be a purpose-driven company with the purpose of transforming, lives of agricultural workers. And as a result, it's kind of in our DNA.
Yeah.
And so, throughout this journey, we helped start the Equitable Food Initiative. And that we did that to, ensure that the food that makes its way to your table is grown responsibly and equitably. And then we said, okay, let's make sure all of our facilities are fair trade certified, because we want to make sure that our workers are empowered to improve not only their lives, but their communities.
Sure.
And then the natural next step was to look into becoming B-Corp certified. And, we wanted to, again, use our business as a force for good. And so it made sense to look into this, and we began looking into it. And you're right, it is an arduous process,
right.
But it's it's definitely worth the journey. And, as a fairly large company in terms of being B Corp certified, you can imagine the complexities involved. But it's been an exciting journey for sure.
It's a really worthy journey, and I love how you said that the foundation was laid 30 plus years ago when the company decided what it was really all about, and that is transforming the lives of agriculture workers. It's so true. NatureSweet is certainly a company that is prior to your certification, you were certainly B Corp adjacent with everything that the company stood for, and now going through the process. And I think it's a beautiful thing that it's so difficult to become certified. It really makes the certification meaningful, because it's not something that is it's not a shill process where anyone who can write a check can carry this certification. It's very much, it's very much an elite group, and I hope it stays that way, because it's not easy to walk the talk when it comes to social and environmental responsibility and all of the other benchmarks and pillars that go into becoming certified B Corp. So let's define B Corp for those who aren't familiar with it. If you're watching any of the YouTube clips we have, you can see the logo right there over Skip's shoulder. He has the sign in his background, and there are some very notable companies that are part of the certified B Corp community. But Skip, I'll let you go first with how you define it, and then I'll add anything that I think is meaningful.
Okay, yeah, I'm glad to be talking to an expert who's been through this.
Oh, sure.
But as you know, I'll start with this. B stands for benefit. Mm-hmm. And I know you've gone through the process, but you do go through a rigorous, what they call a B impact assessment. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, it's the gold standard in measuring whether your company is, again, I'll get back to a force for good. And it really looks at, it looks at 5 areas of impact. How are you making an impact? One is on governance. One is on workers, community, environment, and then customers. And I know we'll probably go through that in a bit. Yeah. But for NatureSweet, this really meant an opportunity, to highlight our impact on our workers, the impact on our communities, our environment. And, it really, for us, it reaffirms our purpose of transforming the lives of agricultural workers, but it does so in a much deeper public engagement, ensuring that our impact is lasting.
Sure.
Ensuring that it's measurable, that we can now invite the industry to join us in being a force for good.
Right.
So that's kind of, in a very high level, that's sort of what
it's a beautiful
why we
definition.
decided to go down this road.
And I think that in a nutshell, folks, we're talking about companies that are meeting the highest standards of social and environmental responsibility, and most of these benchmarks, these rigorous benchmarks that go through those categories that Skip explained: workers, community, customers, environment, and governance. All of those benchmarks are modeled after the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So that is how you can kind of dive a little bit deeper into understanding what Certified B Corp is all about. At the Produce Moms, we indexed really high. We got the majority of our points from the community pillars. So we're a community force for good. And I think that anyone who's part of our of our community here at TPM, you can understand that. I mean, all of our content that we publish, it's all available public domain. We're working, to drive forward a very important mission of getting more fruits and vegetables on every table. We're doing political action to support, nutrition and food security through our nation's programs such as USDA school meals, WIC, and more. And aligning ourselves with companies that share these values. So when we align with a company and we make the decision, like NatureSweet's the ultimate brand for us to align with as it comes to our brand ambassador work, this now gives you a glimpse as to why, these are companies that are mission aligned with with our values. So Skip, let's talk about a little bit deeper into these different pillars. Okay. So reminding folks of NatureSweet's purpose and corporate beliefs. So the purpose, I know we've said it many times, but we can't say it enough. Transforming the lives of agricultural workers. I mean, that is so powerful. Anything you want to add to the purpose and how that lent itself to the B-Corp journey?
Yeah, so I would say, and one of the things you asked is, we scored pretty high. I don't know, Lori,
I know
what
how
y'all
high
scored.
you scored. You scored 114 points, which is significantly higher than the minimum requirement. The minimum requirement's around 80 to 85. I can't remember the exact number, but that is significantly higher than what's, required. So I think that also is something that's, very important.
Yeah, and I think you're right. You need to score 80 in the assessment in order to be certified, and we scored 43% more than we needed, and that's pretty amazing, I think, by anyone's standards.
For sure.
I kind of laugh and say we just have a bunch of overachievers, but it really took a lot of effort, and I'm so proud of all of our associates, and so many were involved in this process. But I think that scoring that high was important to us. But I think it's, the question is why? Well, it really does validate what we already knew.
Yeah.
The best people equals the best quality and the best product. And it really does show what can happen when you unleash the power of people. And so for us, it validated all of that. And you've asked about the different areas. And just so your audience can understand this, B Labs comes in, they evaluate your impact. And we talked about workers. So they look at what is your contribution as a company to your employees' financial, physical, social well-being.
Right.
And then they look at community and what is your contribution as a company to the economic and the social well-being of the communities in which you operate. And then they look at your customers and, they evaluate the value that your company creates for your customers and the consumers of your products. And then I look at the environment and, how do you as a company manage the general environmental impacts? They look at our overall environmental stewardship. And then they look at governance. And in that, they look at your mission and they want to make sure that you, in all your decisions, you make your decisions taking into consideration all the stakeholders, not just the investors, not just the shareholders, but all the stakeholders. They look at your ethics and how do you have an anonymous hotline where people can, call in if there's an ethical issue that comes up. They look at accountability. They look at your transparency. So all of that is what they're measuring and evaluating. And then we, obviously we must have done pretty well in the impact they were looking for because we scored, again, very high.
Yeah.
But even 80
great.
points.
There's very few companies higher than that. I mean, that is truly a global leader within the B-Corp community.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think it does go back to our DNA, right? That's why I said the journey really began 3 decades ago.
Yes. And you said in as you were just talking, those beautiful remarks about the B-Corp journey, you actually stated the corporate belief of unleashing the power of people. And certainly there is a huge commitment to unleashing the power of people in all of those different category benchmarks: workers, community, customers, environment, and governance. There's many people where you're unleashing the power of people. There's many instances where you're unleashing the power of people just within that B Corp ecosystem. But let's talk about, first, I want to make sure people know where you all farm. I mean, you're a Texas-based company, but that's not the only community that you're touching. I mean, you've got this purpose that's dedicated to all of North America. So let's talk a little bit about where NatureSweet has farms today.
Yeah, so we have 3 facilities in Jalisco, in Zapotlan, San Isidro, Tuscaquesco. We have 1 facility in Colima and a facility in Nayarit. Now, when I say facility, you think of a greenhouse. We're talking about over 1,000 acres of greenhouses.
That's a ton.
In Mexico, in these facilities. And then in Q4, we're going to have about 50 acres of greenhouses in the U.S. at our Bonita facility in Arizona.
Okay.
And you would appreciate this, kind of a fun fact with our cherubs. We produce annually over 100 million pounds of cherubs alone out of our Mexico facilities.
Wow. That is unbelievable. And again, #1 selling tomato brand, and a favorite of produce moms everywhere. So I am not exaggerating when I say I have at least 1 container of cherubs at all times in my home kitchen. So,
well, and I know, there's a huge move about buying local, and the reason I think people want local is they want to know who produced the food that's on their table.
Yeah.
And Lori, and she created just an amazing campaign to try to connect us with those that buy our tomatoes with the worker that's putting that produce on their table. And you can take the label and look underneath it, and there is a worker that helped make that product available for you on the table. You can use the QR code and you can read the story about that worker that helped produce your food. And it really does create a powerful connection.
Yeah, it's
even though it's not thrown down the street.
Yeah, it's truly, Skip, one of my absolute most favorite consumer products of all time. Just that it's called Associates Under the Label. Anyone who has bought NatureSweet Constellations, Glories, Cherubs, you have seen this, where you peel back that sticker on top of those cute little cherub containers. I just love them. You peel back the label and then you see the associate greeting you with a smile on their face, and has their name, has their title, what capacity, what their job is as an associate of NatureSweet. And that QR code takes you to video greetings and more information about the associate, as well as the line of work that they do to make that delicious tomato possible in your home kitchen. So really an incredible product. And like Skip said, Lori from NatureSweet, Lori Castillo, she has been a guest here on the podcast, so you can find some good content with her in the archives of the Produce Moms podcast as well. We love working with her and the entire team in the marketing department. But yeah, I think, Skip, some of the things that we've learned by working with your brand and just kind of diving deeper, participating, with the shopper consumer journey with the Associates Under the Label offering that all NatureSweet products have. It's pretty amazing when you consider some of these transformational effects that you're having on your workers, but the whole North American ag worker community. And let's start with the wages, because the wages that NatureSweet, you have this huge farming footprint in Mexico, where wages in Mexico, like the standard versus what NatureSweet pays. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and so we have a principle here, giving and demanding. And so our workers are rewarded by giving and demanding the best of ourselves. Yeah. And so we have created a very sustainable revenues for our associates, paying nearly 40% above the medium wage for farm workers in Mexico, about 25% above the medium even of our main competitors.
Wow.
And most of our workers earn what's considered a living wage, which means a worker has access to housing, to healthcare, to education, to food. And we have a bonus program, and really the associates have the opportunity to earn up to 300% in bonus compensation. Again, they're rewarded by giving and demanding the best of themselves.
Sure.
We have an educational program that where our farm workers can learn to read and write and earn their elementary, their middle, and their high school diplomas. And by the end of this year, more than 2,000 employees will have benefited from this educational program.
Wow.
So it's pretty amazing.
That right there. That is unleashing the power of people, empowering them with sustainable living wages, competitive wages, and then also investing in education, which is, a critical resource that you really can't even put a dollar value amount on an education. That is heartwarming to say the least. So love hearing a little bit more about those programs. And I know that there were many associates involved in this B-Corp journey. I mean, like, for instance, folks from outside of our day-to-day contacts at NatureSweet, most of our day-to-day contacts are within the marketing team at NatureSweet. But, we worked hand in hand with, like, Fernanda, for instance, supporting her when she was at the early stages of the B-Corp journey. I told the team at NatureSweet, I was like, well, I literally just wrapped this up. I dedicated 18 months of my life doing this. I am more than happy to be a resource if you think I can be. And Fernanda and I met a couple times, and, just having someone to help walk you through the dashboard and all of the different nuances, help you set expectations for timelines, because it is a very long runway to certification. I know there were a lot of folks involved, Skip. I mean, anything you'd like to share about how this was a team effort at NatureSweet?
Yes, I would love to share. And Fernanda did an amazing job leading this effort. I was the sponsor, and that's how, I was very involved as the sponsor. But I will tell you, the associate involvement in this journey was massive. Yeah. As you probably know, this was the most cross-functional effort I have ever been involved in. And I don't know what the word is today, but when I grew up, it was like the engagement was off the charts. I think they say off the chains now, but the engagement was just
I'd have to ask my teenage sons, what's the right term now?
I know.
Well, that's amazing to hear. And I hear that you were the sponsor of the effort as opposed to being the person that was, kind of trying to take the lead. I think that also speaks to the culture of NatureSweet. And again, unleashing the power of people. Think of how empowered Fernanda was through this process, and many others who joined her, working on the project and the path to certification. All right. Well, let's talk about, so I know one thing that we've touched on in your remarks, you were talking about that foundational pillar at NatureSweet and some of the content, like we mentioned Lori's episodes on the podcast. I know for a fact, at least one of the times she was on, we were talking about Equitable Food Initiative, and that is also known as EFI certification. So NatureSweet today, to my knowledge, Skip, help me, fact check this if necessary, but I don't know of any other product in the produce department, maybe even in the entire grocery store, that is EFI certified, Fair Trade certified, and B-Corp certified.
Yeah, I don't think there are any.
Yeah, I know there's not in produce. I mean, I don't know about the other sectors of the grocery store for sure, but that's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and EFI, for those that don't know, I mean, it's called Equitable Food Initiative. Mm-hmm. And, Lori, the other Lori Castell, served on the board for many years. And my understanding is that we kind of helped get this started in the early days. Mm-hmm. But really what that focuses on is to make sure that the food is grown responsibly and it's grown equitably. And there are like 300 rigorous standards for labor practices, for food safety, for pest management, and all of those have to be met in order to carry this EFI label. And then fair trade, I think it's much more highly recognized. It's a
Yeah,
highly
I think
recognized.
coffee made that kind of a
Yeah,
mainstream, understanding. Fair trade
right.
coffee was kind of the first coffee was the first commodity of sorts that really made fair trade understood at the household level and throughout the value chain. But let's talk about it, because undoubtedly
Yeah,
there could be people who don't understand it or certainly can't identify the differences in these certifications.
yeah, and it's farm workers, as I mentioned earlier, have been among the most marginalized by the global trade system.
Yeah.
So, hence fair trade. So, this is really at the heart of fair trade. And in order to carry this label, you do meet very stringent social, economic, environmental standards. But the cool thing about fair trade is that you set up an employee managed fund. It's called the Fair Trade Premium, and a portion of all of the tomatoes, the product that's sold that are fair trade, goes into this fund. And I know that just at the very beginning, and this is going to continue to grow, it generated more than $1 million a year. And what it does is it supports community development initiatives
Sure.
like education, access to quality health care, shelter, other basic services. And the really cool thing about it is the employees determine the needs of their communities and how the funds will be spent. It's just another great example of unleashing the power of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've talked extensively about B Corp and what that embodies. But when you think about the fact that NatureSweet has those three certifications to offer, I mean, it's remarkable. And in a world where people want to know that their dollars are going to, are creating that force for good, your consumer spend, and that your budget is going to businesses that walk the talk, that aren't part of this corporate greenwashing culture.
Yes.
That is NatureSweet fits the bill in triplicate format with those three certifications. So it's really something to be proud of, and it's a very unique offering, like we were saying. I mean, this is not something that most companies have to offer to us households, and it's not just to the downstream, to your point, like it's all the stakeholders. Think about, you can be an employee at a company that has these certifications and values. That is, unleashing the power of people. We say it again.
Yeah.
All right. So environmental sustainability, huge part of B Corp. Let's talk a little bit more about that, because especially with NatureSweet being the largest controlled environment agriculture company in the world to earn B Corp certification, let's make sure that folks understand what CEA, controlled environment agriculture, is, and how that in and of itself is a very sustainable practice of agriculture. And then just anything else that you'd like to call out, Skip, as it relates to the environmental sustainability and stewardship that's happening on a daily basis at NatureSweet.
Yeah. And there's a lot of benefits, in my opinion, to controlled environment agriculture. I mentioned one.
Yeah.
You can grow year round, which means you can provide year round jobs. You have workers that don't have to migrate. They can actually be part of their family and be part of their community. But on the environmental side, there's also benefits. And I think that through our innovative greenhouse growing methods, our processes, we really have positioned ourselves as a leader in CEA of controlled environment agriculture and sustainable practices. When you look at environmental, and again, that's one of the impacts they look at, right, under the B Corp. But we've designed like 5 focus areas, biodiversity being one of them. And through biodiversity, we created really the first protected natural area in Tuscaquesco.
Oh.
And actually, Jalisco, the environmental head, came and we had a ceremony, gave us a certificate. So that was pretty amazing. Pest management, you don't have to use as many chemicals and things in controlled environment agriculture as you do in open field. Energy and climate change, we have placed our facilities in mild climates. That's the beauty of, going to Jalisco and to these areas in Mexico, because you have very mild climates. And what that means is you can utilize what they call medium tech greenhouse facilities,
Oh, okay.
and they don't require heating and cooling. So if you go up in the Northeast,
right,
you have to have some massive heating and cooling operations. So
like
your
in
carbon footprint.
Leamington, Ontario, which is a huge. I mean, I've been there. It's a huge area for greenhouse. I mean, it's like just row after row of greenhouse. That's what Leamington, Ontario is. But to your point,
Yeah.
Skip, like you think about the seasonality and the climate of that region and how many months out of the year they're having to, utilize energy resources to maintain that equilibrium of the CEA. I'd never really thought about that, like
Yeah.
ever. So I'm glad you brought it up because I've never thought about it until now.
And even when you factor in the transportation, you're
Sure.
still creating less of a carbon footprint by being able to utilize medium technology.
Wow.
When you look at water, again, another benefit, you can utilize drip irrigation. You have less evaporation. You use about 80% less water than open field farming. So there's just lots of benefits. And, the other, focus area would be on waste. So, but yeah, I think controlled environment agriculture is the future. And we've invested a lot in it. It's not cheap.
No.
But again, that's why you have to have a business model that allows you to create a premium product so you can do all these things.
Right. Well, this has been the most amazing and enlightening conversation. I'm so glad we did this because I've learned so much more about NatureSweet, just, having this conversation with you. Certainly have strengthened my brand love. It's so wonderful to hear about just how deep this purpose goes at NatureSweet and how truly at your core, it is all about transforming the lives of agricultural workers at NatureSweet, but beyond, and that's really what's so amazing, elevating the standard, moving the pendulum, like creating that categorical change that's going to make the world a better place and be the force for good. So I am just full of gratitude as we close out today's episode. I'm very thankful that my business, the Produce Moms and NatureSweet have the opportunity to collaborate and inspire households to eat more fruits and vegetables and specifically look for those NatureSweet products when they're at the grocery store. But with that, Skip, I want to give you the mic for closing remarks. I'm really glad that you were able to come on. I know you're a very busy man, and it's great to see you outside of our congressional meetings in D.C., but hope to see you in D.C. soon. We got a lot of work still to do on the current farm bill. So, but with that, thank you for your time, and thank you for being part of today's show.
Well, I appreciate that. And this is a lot more fun than our D.C. tasks. But we love our partnership with you, Lori, and just want to thank you for the opportunity really to share our story. And I really want to encourage and invite other businesses, especially in the agricultural world, to be a force for good. All workers, especially agriculture workers who work so hard to feed the world, they really do deserve to be treated with dignity. And so I would actually urge consumers and the produce moms out there to demand from the retailers who sell you the fresh produce that they buy from a company or companies that really do. They don't greenwash. They actually are the real deal.
That's right.
And so I
Yep.
appreciate
Look for that certified B Corporation logo. Visit the certified B Corp directory that's highly accessible online. And most definitely, when it comes to your tomato purchases, buy NatureSweet. You're going to love the flavor. They're always a consistent, delicious flavor. But beyond that, you are going to really be empowering this force for good with your dollars. So, Skip, it has just been the best show. Thank you for being part of it. And I want to encourage everyone, hey, stick with us here at the Produce Moms podcast. We've got great episodes, amazing leaders that are coming at you week after week. So your ratings, your review, your subscriptions, everything really helps. And like I've been saying lately, I really would love your review, but with or without your review, I'm still coming back next week with a great podcast episode. Thanks again for being part of today's show, Skip. Tell everyone goodbye.
All right. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.